Mayor Mo and the councilors are back at it again. Today we are going to read about Mayor Mo and the nasty news. Mayor Mo was in a very grouchy mood and his nose was throbbing. He stared at the newspaper in his hands as the councilors took their seats. On the front page was a huge picture of him with his nose wrapped in a bandage and the headline, "Why is the city in a mess? Only Mayor Mo's nose knows." "Councilors," he explained as the meeting began, "we are being unfairly attacked by the media. Every time we pass a law, the newspapers and television stations criticize us and publish unflattering pictures." "No kidding," said Councilor Fuzz, holding up the newspaper. "Look here. They say we are all a bunch of needle noggins." "Well, I don't think the media or anyone else should be allowed to say things like that," sniffed Councilor Feather. "Who wants to live in a city with such rudeness? Certainly not I." Councilor Finney stood up. "I agree. I know just what to do. Let's pass a Be Nice law with a nice big fine for those who aren't." "What a fine idea," said Councilor Feather. If everyone stopped being so unpleasant, this city would become courteous and genteel. And who wouldn't like that?" At the bottom of the room, Councilor Bug was flashing her light on and off and squeaking, "That's not fair! That's not fair! What about freedom of the press?" But nobody was listening to her. Very politely, Councilor Finney asked Councilor Feather if she would kindly help him write the new law. Equally politely, Councilor Feather agreed. In fact, they were being so polite, it made Mayor Mo even grumpier. "Just write the fool law," he grumbled. In no time at all, and without much discussion, the councilors passed a law that made it illegal to say or publish anything unpleasant or critical. There would be no more complaining, no more name-calling, and no embarrassing pictures. Still feeling grouchy, Mayor Mo went into his office at the end of the day. "No bad news allowed," said the radio on his desk. "Everyone in the city must now be kind and sweet, or they'll get a ticket." There was a knock at the door. Carmela, Mayor Mo's wife, had arrived to take him to dinner to celebrate their anniversary. "Happy anniversary, Mo. Do you like my new hat?" asked Carmela. "It looks like a wet pig got loose in a ribbon store," snorted Mayor Mo. "You can't say that, Mayor Mo. It's not nice. You've broken the law," said Officer Pencils, who had been standing behind Carmela in the doorway. As Officer Pencils was writing out the ticket, Mayor Mo noticed the bunch of reporters and photographers also standing in the doorway. It was getting pretty crowded in the mayor's office. "Anything to say?" asked reporter Cucaracha Festoon, thrusting a microphone toward Mayor Mo. "My wife has lovely taste in hats," muttered Mayor Mo. "Time to go, my dear." He ushered her through the crowd. Cucaracha decided to follow them. She wanted to see what would happen next. Mayor and Mrs. Mo got into their Mo-mobile and rounded the corner near City Hall. Mayor Mo was driving fast. Bang! Crash! He drove into a huge hole in the middle of the street. And Carmela and Mayor Mo were most surprised to find that they were not alone in the hole. Councilor Finney, Councilor Feather, and a number of other citizens had all crashed their cars into the pit in the street, too. They were stepping on each other and grumbling as they tried to get out of the hole. Cucaracha Festoon and her crew arrived and began to film the big mess. "Good gravy," she said into her microphone. "Just look at this giant pothole. This city is simply ridiculous. What kind of needle-noggin city council lets things like this get this bad?" The words were no sooner out of her mouth than Officer Pencils popped out from behind the smashed cars and handed her a ticket. "Sorry, Miss Festoon," he said, "but I just heard you say something that was not nice. You broke the new law, so I had to give you this ticket." "Oh, for goodness sakes! How am I supposed to report the news if I can't say anything critical?" Don't blame me, ma'am," replied Officer Pencils. I don't make the laws, I just enforce them. What fool forgot to report this accident waiting to happen? Where are the media when you need them? And ow! My nose! My nose! Shouted Mayor Mo from the bottom of the hole. Officer Pencils leaned down and handed Mayor Mo another ticket. Hearing a buzzing sound, the mayor looked up to see Counselor Bug flying in circles around his head. I told you it wasn't fair, she said. How could you forget about freedom of the press? Don't you know that we need the media to be free to tell us everything, even things that aren't nice? After everyone had clambered out of the hole, an embarrassed Mayor Mo and Counselor Bug, Feather, and Finny decided to walk back to City Hall. There would be no anniversary dinner for the mayor and his wife. There was work to be done. Back at City Hall, Mayor Mo called the meeting to order. Usually, he had to use his gavel to get the talkative councilors to be quiet, but now there was nothing but silence. Hello? He said. No one spoke. The councilors knew that as soon as they said something not nice about what happened, they would get tickets. Finally, Councilor Finney mustered his courage. Fellow councilors, he said with a sigh, I think we made another mistake. We didn't find out about that big hole because we stopped the media from reporting anything bad, even though we needed to know about it. I move we withdraw our law right now. But I like it, sniffed Counselor Feather. No one is rude to me, and I don't have to hear anything nasty. I think the city is now a much nice placer for us all. Stand up for freedom of the press. Freedom of the press is one of the most important freedoms that we have in a democracy. The media, television, radio, newspapers, bloggers, and so on, tell us what is happening in the world, both good and bad. But sometimes governments don't like being criticized, so they censor the media, which means preventing the media from reporting anything the governments don't like. Not hearing about a pothole isn't too serious, but media censorship can be dangerous when it stops us from learning about important subjects or different opinions. For example, what if a government has secretly done things that resulted in people being hurt or even killed? If no one found out about these terrible things, then no one would be able to stop them from happening again. How much should we know about what our government is doing? Do you think the Be Nice law was fair?